Chapter 6 of The Giant Killer, or The Battle Which All Must Fight, by Charlotte Maria Tucker. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 6 Trials and Troubles. "Dear mother, you look very pale," said Bertha, as soon as the tale was concluded. "I am not feeling very well, my love. I have one of my headaches to–day. Perhaps I may be better after dinner." "We must make no noise for mamma," whispered Laura to Adolphus, as they were summoned by the bell to the meal. Mrs. Roby carved, that was always her office. In every little duty of the kind she spared her husband all trouble that she could possibly take on herself. But when she had supplied the children's plates, Bertha remarked that she put nothing on her own. She rested her head upon her hand, and closed her eyes, as if she were in pain. "Mamma eats nothing," whispered Laura again, a look of anxiety on her bright little face. "My love, are you not well?" said Mr. Roby, laying down his own knife and fork. "I do not feel as well as usual," she replied, with a faint smile, her face growing paler, her eyes heavier each minute. "I believe that perhaps I had better go to my own room. I am not good company for you to–day." She rose, but almost staggered as she rose, and was glad of the support of her husband's arm. Her children followed, anxious and unhappy. Their mother was ever so cheerful and bright, so thoughtful of others and neglectful of herself, that they feared that she must feel very poorly indeed to leave them thus, and retire to her bed. "Oh, go back to your dinner, my children," she said, with a half–vexed, half–gratified look, as she saw the three at the door of her room. "This is nothing to make you uneasy. I only require a little rest and sleep. I hope that I shall soon be all right again. Go, return to your young guests below." Laura only stayed for one kiss, and then went away with her brother. Bertha lingered to beat up the pillows, bring out the cloak, draw the window–curtains to keep out the light, and then, taking the hand of Mr. Roby, left her mother to try to get a little sleep. Feeling unhappy about her suffering parent, and disinclined to touch another morsel of her food, Bertha was irritated to see Adolphus eagerly helping himself from the dish, having taken possession of her mother's vacant chair. Little was said during the remainder of the meal, after which Bertha, creeping with noiseless step up–stairs, returned with the good tidings that, on gently opening the door, she had seen her mother fast asleep. "On no account disturb her," said Mr. Roby, rising. "I am obliged to go and see a sick parishioner. I depend upon the house being kept quiet in my absence." "But, papa, it is raining so fast," said Laura. "Poor Thompson is dying," was her father's reply. "If I delay, I may never see him alive. I think your dear mother said that she had a little broth ready. I will carry it to him myself." The Probyns were diverted to see the dignified–looking master walk off in the rain, struggling to hold up an umbrella against the wind so as to protect both himself and the brown jug in his hand, and picking his steps through a river of mud. "He'll spill it, to a dead certainty," laughed Constantine. "I'd drink it on the way, just to put it out of danger," cried his brother. Their loud, rude voices sounded in strange contrast to the low tones of the Robys, whose minds were full of the illness of their mother. "Oh, Aleck," whispered Bertha, going close up to her brother, and laying her hand on his arm, "what on earth can we do to keep these Probyns quiet? Unfeeling boys that they are, what a noise they are making! They will waken poor mamma, they will make her head worse. Oh, what are we to do to keep them both still?" "I say, Pro, would you not like to take a book?" asked Aleck. "You know I hate books. I am going to drive 4 in hand," replied the boy, dragging the chairs towards the black horsehair sofa, which he proposed to convert into a coach. "I'd have a railway train," cried Constantine, and, Raising his hands to his lips, he gave a loud whistle, in imitation of the sound so familiar to travellers. "Oh, be quiet!" exclaimed Laura. "You forget mamma." Constantine's reply was a whistle twice as loud. Aleck was about to say something in a high, angry tone, but was stopped by poor Bertha's imploring look. "Can't we make them think of anything else?" she whispered hurriedly to her brother. "We might employ them in making a kite." "A good thought," replied Aleck; "but where are we to get the materials? You know that you have the lathes and the large sheets of paper ready, and as for string, there is plenty in that drawer, and—" "Shall we set to and make a famous kite?" proposed Aleck aloud to his companions. To the relief of Bertha, the idea pleased both the Probyns. For once in their lives they appeared quite agreed. "We must have lots of paste to begin with," said Con. "Run to Susan, Lautie dear, and ask her to make a little," cried Aleck. Sweet little Laura was ever the ready messenger, and had darted off before the sentence was concluded. "What a comfort Aleck is! I do not know what we should do without him," thought Bertha, as she saw him setting about the kite making with energy and skill, making even Adolphus busy. "Now I can slip quietly away and sit at dear mamma's door, and watch till she wakes, and get her tea the first moment she wants it." So there the loving child took her station, listening for the slightest sound from within, distressed when any loud voice or laugh from below broke the quiet stillness of the house. "I am afraid that I am selfish, sitting here doing nothing," Bertha said at length to herself. "Dear mamma is always so active and busy, on Saturday evening above all. There is so much mending to do. Ah, could I not help her in that? But I do so dislike mending and darning. It is the most tiresome work in the world." The little girl heaved a sigh. "I fear that I am in the pit of the giant, but I must struggle out of it as well as I can. My work–box is in the sitting–room. How vexatious! I did not wish to go there again. Perhaps, after all, the mending may be left alone for just this one week." She paused irresolute, and sighed again. Then words came into her mind, which had been taught to her by her beloved mother. Holy words about being "not slothful in business." It was plain to Bertha that conscience was rousing her to work, and, with a resolution worthy of Fides himself, she ran downstairs for the work–box. "We must have scissors, scissors," were the first words with which she was received. "Give us your scissors, Bertie, quick!" cried Con in a domineering tone. Now Bertha disliked the request for more than one reason. She did not like the manner in which it was made. She did not choose to part with what she might require herself, and she was afraid to trust rather a delicate pair of scissors in the hands of rough, fiddle–faddling boys. "Laura, where are yours? They are commoner, they are less likely to be spoiled," said she. "Oh, I can't find them. Giant Sloth has hid them somewhere," laughed the child. Bertha thought the laugh unfeeling when their mother was unwell, and felt provoked at the carelessness of her sister. "Come, quick, I can't wait. Out with your scissors," repeated Con. Bertha gave them, but with no very good grace, and with an irritated spirit returned to her station at her mother's door. Oh, this pit of selfishness! How hard it is to climb out of it step by step! Bertha now began to think again of her plan for assisting her mother in mending, but recollected that all the clothes collected for that purpose were in Mrs. Roby's own room, which could not be entered without risk of awakening the invalid. Bertha felt more glad than a perfectly unselfish girl would have been at being thus prevented from attempting a tiresome task, especially as there was a very amusing book which she wished to finish before Sunday. Bertha was soon deeply engaged in her book, when she was interrupted by little Laura running upstairs, and saying softly, "Bertie, the boys want your paint–box." "But they can't have it," replied Bertha, with impatience. "They would make such a mess of all my nice paints, and spoil the whole box, that I have been keeping so carefully that I have scarcely liked to use it myself." "They want it very much. I shall only have to run upstairs again," said Laura, as she slowly and reluctantly descended the stairs with the ungracious message of her sister. The next minute a door below was noisily opened, and Con shouted out in a loud, angry voice, "Bertha, we must have your paint box." "Dear, he'll wake mamma," cried Bertha, in distress. "Yes, yes, I'll bring it directly. Only be quiet," she whispered, leaning over the banister. "Bertha," called a faint voice from within the room. The little girl entered it with a noiseless step. "Is anything the matter, my love?" "Oh no, dearest mamma, only that boy Con wanted something. I am afraid that he awoke you with his loud voice. Do go to sleep again. It will do you good." Mrs. Roby's eyes closed heavily. "Do you feel better, dearest mamma?" "I hope to be better to morrow," said the lady, faintly. "May I sit beside you, my own precious mother?" whispered Bertha, her heart growing very heavy. "No, no, go and do what the boys want, my love. I need nothing but rest and quiet." Bertha kissed her mother's feverish brow, and glided out of the room, but not without the bundle of clothes which had been placed on a chair ready to be mended. With a sigh she drew from her drawer her beautiful little paint box. She opened it, and taking out the two cakes which she most admired, the light blue and the lake, put them carefully by amongst her little treasures. "I will save these, at least," she said to herself. Then, fearing lest delay should occasion another loud call from the impatient Constantine, she ran hastily down with the box. The sitting room presented such a scene of disorder as might have been expected, and seemed a copy, in a small way, of the hall of Giant Sloth in everything but its stillness. The table was covered with lath and paper, cuttings of which strewed the carpet. Books and boxes were huddled together on the chairs, and a tangled heap of twine lay on the floor, which Laura was trying to draw out into some order. Con, with his sleeves tucked up and his hands all over paste, of which some had found its way to his jacket, snatched the paint box eagerly from Bertha, upsetting, as he did so, the glass of water which had been placed ready for the painting. "Why were you so long?" he cried, angrily. "Your loud voice awoke mamma," said Bertha, reproachfully. Aleck and Laura uttered exclamations of regret. "Well, I'm sorry for that, but it was your own fault. Why, how's this?" added the boy as he opened the box. "Here are two of the best paints gone. Have you hid them to keep them from us?" he cried, turning fiercely towards the frightened little girl. Bertha's heart beat quick. She thought of Giant Untruth and the Gallery of Fear, but whatever other faults might be hers, she was never guilty of this most disgraceful one. She did not give an equivocating answer. She did not say, "Perhaps they may be upstairs," or "I will go and try to find them." To the question of Constantine she returned a simple, truthful "Yes," and never had the boy respected her so much before. "Well, that's candid at any rate," he said, with a smile, "but I should not have thought of your being up to hiding them." "She had a good right to do what she pleased with them," observed Aleck, "and it is kind in her to lend us any of her paints. Here, dear," he continued, addressing his sister, laying his hand on the box, which Con had placed on the table, "we shall only want these, the yellow and the red. Take the box with the rest of them upstairs. They might get spoiled here amongst us, you know." There was a glow of grateful affection towards her brother in the heart of poor little Bertha as she heard this proposal, to which, to her surprise, the Probyns made no objection. Perhaps there was some good in them, after all. Perhaps they thought, from seeing the example of Aleck, that it is quite as manly to be considerate and courteous to a little girl as to bully, tease, and distress her; that nothing is gained by fretting the tempers and embittering the lives of those with whom we dwell, while the affection of a young warm heart is not a thing to be thrown lightly away. It is doubtful whether these thoughts entered the minds of Adolphus and Constantine. If they did so, it was probably for the first time; but it is certain that Bertha left the room with a feeling of tender, grateful love towards Aleck. He was making her duty less difficult to her; he was helping her out of the pit of selfishness; he was holding out to her grasp the strong cord of love. She would have given up anything to please him. "How strange it is," such were the reflections of Bertha as she commenced her self–imposed task of mending, "how strange it is that I should think so much of doing a trifle for her to whom I owe everything. I have heard that when I was very ill, as a baby, mamma never went to rest, night after night, but carried me about, rocking me in her arms, till she was scarcely able to stand. How good she has been, teaching me all these long years, slow, troublesome pupil as I have been! How often have I wearied her, and tried her patience, looked vexed when she reproved me, and not heeded her advice! Oh, if I were to lose her now!" The tears rose into Bertha's eyes, and her work seemed to swim before her. "If I could only be a comfort to her, save her trouble, never give her another moment of pain, repay oh no, I can never repay, but show how I feel all her tender love. Now that she is ill," here 2 great drops fell on the sock which Bertha was darning, and there was the sound of a little short sob, but she stifled it, lest her mother should hear it. Just then Bertha heard voices in the hall. Mr. Roby had returned, and with him a medical man whom he had met at the cottage of Thompson. "I should like you to see her. I trust that her indisposition is slight, but—" Bertha rose with her finger on her lips, but a little noise in the room within showed that precaution was not needed. The doctor saw Mrs. Roby, and pronounced that her illness was not of an alarming nature, that it had been produced by over–exertion, and that, therefore, quiet and repose were indispensable for the present. For at least this and the following day the lady was not to quit her own room. Great was the relief of her loving family on hearing the opinion of the medical man. A weight seemed taken from the heart of poor Bertha; but still care and anxiety pressed on her mind, greatly increased by the thought which was perpetually recurring, "When mamma is not here to look after us, how shall we ever manage with the Probyns?" CHAPTER VII.